welcome to today's session. My name is Craig Woods. I'm with Intermedia Product Marketing, responsible for Office 365. I'm joined today by Alex Smith from the UK. Obviously, today is not a black tie event. And Randy Ide, who's the product manager, actually director of product management for Office 365 and Email Plus. And what we're going to do today is we're going to provide you with an update on Office 365. We're going to talk about Microsoft Teams. There was a question about how quickly we'll be getting into Teams. We will be getting into that within the first half hour. But there's obviously a lot going on. So we have a jam-packed session today, and we're going to try to leave time at the end to answer questions. But we're also going to be providing everybody with a copy of today's recorded session. And then we'd be happy to, we very much want to follow up with any questions that we're unable to answer. So we'll try to have questions at the end, but we'll be following up with everybody. So please enter questions using the question, the Q&A option at the top of your screen. So that gives us a way to make sure that we know who's asked what, and that we can follow up with you. Okay, so appreciate everybody's attendance today. We're going to talk about some fantastic news around Office 365 and email protection. And Alex Smith has done a ton of work around email protection. And so we're going to have some details about that I think you'll find very interesting. We're going to talk about what the heck is going on with Microsoft 365 and Office 365. And to guide us through the maze that Microsoft has erected, Randy is going to step us through plans, availability, and pricing. And then we're going to talk about Office 365 and Teams. Has anybody heard about Teams? I think everybody has heard about Teams. It's all about Teams right now. So we're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about Teams and how to deal with that. And specifically for our partners who are so all of you are probably familiar with Exchange and Office 365. We're expecting that there's some of you who are also working with Unite. So we're going to talk about Unite and Teams in a way that I hope will apply to all of the partners that are here today. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A. Okay, so with that, let me turn it over to Randy, who's going to talk a little bit about email protection.
Great, thanks, Craig. And email protection for Office 365 is something I'm very excited about. We've just launched this. The exciting thing is this is something we did after hearing partner feedback asking about, hey, can we use your email protection used for hosted Exchange and put it on Office 365? Because we really like it. So that was a lot of feedback from partners. So we've done it. So it basically is our advanced email protection that you're familiar with from our hosted Exchange product, just applied to Office 365. You've got your policy-based spam, your malware blocking, your detailed anti-phishing protection. Very important, that time of click protection you can enable for real time. It'll scan that URL at the time you click it. Very important for anti-phishing. Your outbound email protection and some 0-day hour protection for emerging threats. So you're going to be really used to the control panel on it if you've done it for hosted Exchange. So it'll be pretty simple to learn. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Alex Smith to talk a little bit more in depth about this product and how it works and what makes it great.
Yeah, thanks, Randy, and thanks, Craig. Okay, so rather than a kind of deep dive into all the features and functions and all that goodness, being that this is related to Office 365 specifically, I thought we'd focus in on some of the real differentiators and reasons why this solution is as capable as it is, specifically relating to Office 365. So first of all, one of the things that we hear more frequently than perhaps you might think around the Office 365 email protection that you get natively with Office 365 is around accuracy. Now, when I say that, I mean specifically the categorization of spam and malware and threats. And we talk about things like false positive rates and false negative rates and things like that in technical terms, but really it's about how much is hitting your inbox that shouldn't be hitting your inbox, and equally how much is hitting your quarantines or your junk email folder that shouldn't be, that's genuinely legitimate. So I think one of the real advantages that we have with the email protection solution dates back to its inception. When we first designed this capability, we knew and we accepted pretty early on that Indepth are not a threat and malware vendor, and that there are people out there who spend multi-millions of dollars of research and development who focus only on detecting malware, detecting spam, and detecting threats within email. So rather than go out and effectively try and become one of those vendors, we decided that we would take the partnership route. But what we wanted to do at the same time is ensure that we retained the control that we needed so that we could take advantage of these best of breed solutions, these best of breed vendors, and that we retained the ability to mix and match them. And if we needed to, swap them in and out without having any impact to our end customers. So we built the control panel. The control panel remains the same all the time. The user interactions, so whatever UIs the users see, email notifications, things like that, they remain the same all the time. But what we're able to do to ultimately have best-in-class detection rates and accuracy rates is we have a group of engines. So here in that shield in the middle, you'll see the current selection of engines that we use. Proofpoint CloudMark and Vade Secure. They are our principal or primary engines relating to anti-spam, anti-phishing, anti-malware. And the reason that we have those two specifically is they both take very different approaches to how they perform detection. One is based on kind of more traditional signatures, and the other is a bit more based on heuristics. They're just different techniques that are used, and they are both best in class at what they do. But by using multiple engines in the way that we do, we effectively pair these engines up in a way that they effectively check each other's work. So, these engines will sometimes disagree on a classification. And what we have then done is wrapped the output that we get from these engines into something that we call the unified category. And that effectively takes all these inputs from these different engines using different approaches and comes up with a unified score. And it helps us really have high levels of confidence in the categorizations that we provide. Now, I'm not going to stand here or sit here in this case and tell you that, any engine is 100%. That's just unrealistic. And, anybody in security will understand that. What security is about is defense in depth and layering. So what we do here is layer up these engines with other things and other threat feeds, whether that's Spamhaus for IP reputation and a whole host of others. And we attempt to basically layer on those capabilities. So I just wanted to really key into that point that having a multi-engine approach offers some significant and distinct advantages as it relates to accuracy. But also, if any of these providers aren't performing, we hold very short-term contracts with them, 12-month contracts typically with these vendors. So, if there's a new, kid on the block who's absolutely awesome, we can swap those out, we can swap those in. And in the 5 or 6 years we've had this solution, we've done that a number of times. We have different vendors for antivirus, and anti-phishing, different threat feeds, IP, blacklist, all of that good stuff. But really, we're taking that burden away from you so that you don't have to switch and provide new vendors. It's our job, we feel, to basically hide that burden away from you. And we'll worry about it. So on the next slide, though, you'll see, as well as those engines, there are a few things that we feel that we actually did want to implement ourselves. And one very specific one is the time of click protection. So we call this link safe or just URL protection in our partner product that you guys will be familiar with. This time of click protection, though, offers some distinct advantages. Obviously, it's a user-facing or a user-impacting interface. So we obviously, for the reasons I stated before, wanted to design those pages ourselves. It also allows us to, again, use different threat feeds and different vendors behind the scenes, swap them in and out without having any impact to the administrators or the end users. But one vendor that we use, that specific heuristic vendor, also offers us a live scanning capability. And this is something that is quite unique, and we feel that you guys should perhaps take a look at if you haven't right now. What you get as an end user is a like a spinner. In this case, it's a kind of animation from this machine where the web page goes in on the left-hand side and then spits out on the right-hand side with a determination or categorization. But while that's happening, what we're doing behind the scenes is we've called one of these vendors. They visit in real time that page and try to determine how fishy it is based on. And what this though gives is a real kind of 0-day protection against these URLs and phishing sites that have never previously been seen. So it's pretty low impact in how it affects the end users. Some end users and administrators, in fact, choose to enable this irrespective because it's a pause, as it were, for the user to really think about whether that link they clicked on was something they should have clicked on, and that alone offers some degree of protection, would you believe it or not? And you can set things up like safe lists, safe URL lists and block lists as well, should you desire, within LinkSafe. And then on top of that, we've also layered on some specific phishing. We call them just the phishing features. You're seeing the phishing tab here. Again, if you haven't looked at these, if you've been on one of my webinars before, I've gone into some detail and depth on these. We have some excellent KBs on these, but these are some very specific kind of capabilities. They're very deterministic in the most part. They basically apply some very specific checks. I encourage you to go and look at those because they layer on additional protections or additional specific functions on top of those engines that I referred to before. And again, this is all about building up a threat stack or a multi-layered protection. So I'm going to stop there. We don't want this to be a techie deep dive, but I think these are the things that are very relevant when you're considering using this solution to protect Office 365 mailboxes.
Thanks, Alex. So just reviewing the plans overall, and again, I want to emphasize, and the reason I emphasize this is that we oftentimes get questions. Somebody will look at a Microsoft web page for a particular description of a Microsoft package that we sell, and they'll say, well, this includes that. Does your version include that? Well, we sell these Microsoft 365, Office 365 packages exactly the way Microsoft builds them. So if you see it on the Microsoft webpage as an included feature of a particular SKU, it will be included in the SKU when we sell it as well. So if you look at left to right here, Microsoft 365 apps for business bundled with our Exchange, hosted Exchange. If you look at our hosted Exchange versus the Microsoft Exchange Online, we do have unlimited storage. We do have a 99.99% uptime compared to Microsoft's at 99.9%. Doesn't sound like a lot. That's a lot of minutes per month though when you add it up. So that's available. Does include OneDrive. Nothing new there other than the name change. Going ahead to the basics, I wanted to kind of point out what plans from Microsoft include the Teams service. So there's some confusion out there that Microsoft has created, where some of the former Pro Plus package, for example, which is now called Microsoft 365 Apps for Enterprise, allows you to download the Teams application, but you need a backend service, the same way you could use Outlook, the desktop client, but if you don't have Exchange on the back end, there's nothing to connect it to. So we wanted to clarify which packages include that back-end team service. And that is the 365 Business Basic, the Microsoft 365 Business Standard, and the E1 and the E3. They have the full team suite as Microsoft sells it and packages it. It's available with all of our add-ons and bundles for advanced email protection, secure sync email archiving, and encrypted email. So we just kind of wanted to clarify that. I know there's a lot of confusion out there. Also wanted to let you guys know that we have tried to talk to Microsoft about just adding Teams into a hosted Exchange product. However, they just have not built Teams in a way to be integrated with a hosted Exchange product other than their own. So wanted to kind of clarify that point as well. So it's just so tightly integrated with SharePoint and some of the other features of Office 365. If you kind of separate it out, you don't get the intended user experience. But that said, we do have packages that include full Teams. We do have other alternatives that could potentially meet your customers' needs as well. And I'm going to turn over to Craig to take it away and talk about our updated collateral, as well as kind of helping you guide customers into Teams or other solutions other than Teams or some combination thereof.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Randy. And I think what you're going to find is that moving forward, it's going to be hard for us to talk about Office 365 or Microsoft 365 without including Teams or Microsoft Teams in the same sentence. And part of that is because it's a very hot issue. Part of it is because, of the way Microsoft is packaging this. But the big thing that we're trying to emphasize is that Teams is available. We can help you with that. And the way that we deliver that is through Office 365, through the Office 365 / Microsoft 365 plans that Randy was talking about. So we've updated the collateral, and the collateral changes are partly to reflect the naming. So for example, what was Office Apps, then Office 365 Business, now Microsoft 365 Apps from Intermedia. That collateral is now up to date with the naming. We've introduced a new product family piece about all of the different plans, and that's kind of in the center there, highlighting again Microsoft Teams as part of the different services, and we're also trying to help you position Exchange plus Microsoft 365 apps as one of the Office 365, Microsoft 365 options that should be available, that are available to you, and that may help you in specific customer situations. Today we're going to talk about Teams, so that's a bit more complex, but the collateral is updated. We're going to try to keep this on track as Microsoft completes and revises their naming. But to Randy's point, if there's any confusion for these plans, what we're doing is we're selling through the Microsoft plan. So the contents, as specific packages change, what's going to be delivered is going to be entirely consistent with what Microsoft is providing. Okay. I wanted to highlight one other thing, since Alex did such a great job of describing the secret sauce around our email protection. We have the Intermedia Security Kit to help you describe and deploy email protection, whether it's with Exchange or Office 365, and it has a couple of components that I think are important to remember. The first is there's a great overview video by Ryan Barrett about the threats if you're trying to educate clients about the range of threats that they should be concerned about. There's also a video that Alex has created that gives you the recipe for how to log in and turn on the email protection features that are the most important. The other critical element in most cases is going to be to add, to notify end users, hey, this is happening, because I think that the tags, the external and the possible and the phishing tags that Alex has talked about are extremely, extremely useful, both from a productivity and also from a protection standpoint. But you don't want to surprise end users, and so we're trying to make this as simple as possible by packaging up what would help you tell users, hey, we're turning this on as of Monday. Here's what you're going to see that's different. Here's what you should do about it. Here's what you should be looking for, and here's why we're doing this. So we're trying to make this as simple as possible, so that as you're adding email protection and turning it on, your clients know exactly what's going on and see the value, which again helps you because it's differentiated. Okay. So let me just kind of wrap up the first part of this with what we see as the value prop for providing this from Intermedia. And this is pretty analogous to what we were doing with Office 365. We're offering you the same level of support for the 365, whether it's Office 365, Microsoft 365, E1, E3, any of the other plans, the same level of support that we do for all of our services, which is unique in the industry, JD Power certified support. Particularly interesting if you're providing sell-through the advisor model, but it's also important for you, if you're doing this through the PLR model, that we're backing you up with the same high level of support that you would expect. We've got a dedicated migration team that's very familiar with Exchange to Office 365 migration. So we've heard from various partners that there's a lot of offers for free migration. That's not the important thing; it's what you're getting for it. and we have the most experience in the industry in migrating customers from Exchange to Office 365. So our teams are ready to help you develop a plan and get this done as quickly with minimal disruption. Obviously the third advantage is the provisioning and billing through the control panel interface simplifies life for you as you're trying to provide this. The add-ons, and particularly now advanced email protection, I think are really important because not only do they help clients with real world problems, and I think that now that everybody is dealing with remote workforces, we're seeing the cost of dealing with problems is much higher than it's ever been. And so the ability to prevent these with the email protection option is super important. But it's also a very, very robust and sticky service. And so we think that this will provide you with some advantages around differentiation, and then showing that you understand, what's important to your clients and that you're going above and beyond what other folks who could also be providing them with Office 365 can make available to them. We're also seeing a lot of use of email archiving, particularly around remote workers to protect correspondence. And certainly secure sync and email encryption have roles, and we have other add-ons that you can bring to bear. So the next part of this that I'd like to focus on is some of the things that we're doing and that we're seeing be successful in talking to current customers that are using Exchange that are looking at collaboration and communication solution options. And I think this discussion is complicated a bit depending on whether you today are only selling Exchange, reselling Exchange, or you're doing Exchange and Office 365, or you're been looking at Unite, may or may not be reselling Unite. So I'm going to talk about this in a way that I think will hopefully be useful across those different scenarios. But I also want to include in this that we're seeing a lot of partners that are understanding that collaboration is leading to voice. And so even if today you have not been participating in voice as part of your practice and services that you're providing to customers, what's happening is tending to drive in that direction. So for most of our Exchange clients that are dealing with this, and Microsoft has made Teams and collaboration white hot, and so there's a lot of conversations that may start about Teams because that's what the client has heard about. But they may or may not actually need Teams. It may be a soft or a hard requirement. If it's a soft requirement in terms of they're looking for something that's better than what they have today, they're trying to provide a better strategy for their staff to deal with collaboration, then we think that we've got a range of solutions. And certainly for our partners that are today selling Unite, Elevate, and AnyMeeting, those are great solutions. If a client has a very hard, what I'm going to call later a predisposed need for Teams, then obviously our ability to help you satisfy that through the Office 365 plans, I think that's a really important option. And I think that we're seeing that as a successful way to keep customers on board and help you retain your client base. So we're looking at this from the standpoint first of collaboration and providing better collaboration tools for remote workers across a spectrum of needs that could include Teams. And then we're also trying to help identify places where Teams is the requirement. And so, our ability to do that with JD Power support is what we want to present. And I'm going to go through some decision tree that we've put together that shows how we can do this very quickly if it's certain collaboration capabilities, or how to get directly to migration if that's the direction that it needs to go. So there's really three paths that we see, and it all starts, of course, with what it is the client is trying to do. If we go left to right, what we see is that if they need a broader set of capabilities, so not just one thing, but they need capabilities across chat, online meetings, video conferencing, screen share, in addition to email, then we're seeing that there's some great opportunities to add collaboration through Unite or Elevate to their Exchange services and address that. Second path is if they really want to, if based on what they need, based on what they want, based on what they know. This is going to be a Teams opportunity. Then we'll work with you on getting them to Teams through an Office 365 migration. And then all the way on the right, if it's just around online meetings and video conferencing, then there may be an opportunity to add any meeting to the service and address their needs, and we have some great offers there. So at a high level, these are the three paths that we're seeing play out. So I want to do a drill down into these to provide a bit more detail. At a high level, I think what we're all trying to figure out is what's happening with the client's business that's different. What are the kinds of things that they need that they didn't need before? Obviously, that's important to understand. But specifically, what they're doing today for online meetings or video conferencing is important, because that'll tell you whether any meeting can help, which is included with all of the exchange plans, or if they're already using Teams for that, then that's going to tell you something about the direction that they're going to go in. So understanding what they're doing for online meetings or video conferencing, and just like chat, will help guide you to the correct path. And again, we're getting a lot of feedback about Teams, input from Teams. Some of it is hard in that they have experience or a mandate to use Teams. And in other cases, it's soft, they're interested, but what they're really talking about is collaboration. So we want to try to differentiate. And then the last point that I want to make here, as an introduction, is it's important to understand what is their voice solution today? How are they handling inbound calls? How are those calls being dealt with in a remote environment to get routed? Because if you're going to end up proposing Unite, then you need to know what the landscape is for their voice system. And again, if it's about call routing, then it could also involve contact center. Okay, so let's see. Randy, should we keep going, or was there a specific question that you want us to get into? Randy, I think you're on mute.
Yes, I am on mute. Sorry about that. Yeah, there are a number of questions coming through. I think we just take them all at the end.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, sorry. So if you're reselling Unite today, in addition to Exchange, then if what the client needs is across chat and online meetings and video conferencing, that's a good indicator that Unite can address that. If they're not interested in intermediate voice services, then it's going to be complicated to present Unite as an opportunity, because as I'll talk about later, Unite is heavily predicated on providing their basic voice services as part of the overall solution. I think that understanding if they're using SecureSync is important, because if they're using SecureSync in a highly collaborative fashion, whether it's not just co-editing, but shared files across different teams where they understand and are using the access controls for managing collaboration for different project-related documents, that's a model that is exactly the way Unite manages file sharing, since SecureSync and ShareSync are part of Unite. So that's a good indicator that the Unite umbrella, the Unite platform, can do a good job for their collaboration. And of course, this is assuming that that everything else is working well for them. They're happy with the balance of the intermediate services. So those are the kinds of things that would go towards adding Unite and Elevate to their account. And then the case that we can make is that it's very simple to add these collaboration and UC tools to their Exchange service and support with their remote team. The online meetings, video conferencing, plug right into their Outlook client. So it's super easy to both provision and then for the users to work with. They're using they're using Outlook. They click on create an online meeting, and they're off and running. So very simple. And we can provision this very quickly for remote staff. Onboarding for Unite is geared towards remote workforces. We offer the same reliability and support that they're used to because we're running the service. We offer 5 nines SLA. And of course, we also have a great offer right now for adding Unite or Elevate to Exchange so that their mailboxes are free for each Unite or Elevate seat that they add. For teams, what I mean by predisposed is we're seeing many cases where they already know that they've decided to go to Teams. And so they're either responding to directives or because of their familiarity with Teams, that's a direction that they want to go. The other thing that's really important about Teams is the shared project workspace, which is their model for collaboration. And so that's much harder to do with Unite. We kind of have a different model of collaboration. So if that is a specific kind of feature or hub that they want to set up, then that's a strong indicator that they're going to go down the Teams path. And of course, if they have been on Exchange, but they've also been talking and are actively engaged in exploring Office 365 plans and migrating to Office 365, then Teams is probably going to be the first thing they're going to think about for collaboration. So we can help you with that. We can migrate them very quickly from Exchange to Microsoft Teams. Teams is part of Office 365. That's the path to get there, and we try to provide a very seamless support experience. So there's minimal disruption. They and you get the same level of support. And you can present add-ons like the advanced email protection, email archiving, encryption, file backup and sharing as things that may help augment their Office 365 and Teams environment. And if you contact your partner account manager, then we'll work through the migration process with you. Any meeting is a bit simpler, or online meeting. If what they need is specifically online meetings, screen share, video conferencing, everything else is covered, they're happy with the other services that they're getting, then there's a very simple add for any meeting. Works kind of the same way, plugins added into Outlook. So it's very quickly added to the service, very easy for users to start using. And we have a great deal right now where, as part of everything that's going on, we're offering any meeting and online meetings free through the end of the year. So we've put these. So this is a different view of the same paths, fleshed out a bit. We'll be providing you with the recording, but I'm also happy to share this with as part of the decision tree that we see coming out of this. Specific decision points and the types of questions that help diagnose what it is they need. Thank you very much for coming today. Really appreciate your time.